Good morning and welcome to our daily word. Today is Tuesday, September 7th of the year 2021. Glad you could join me for our few minutes together for our daily word after a few days of not being together due to the holiday. Diane and I are at the camper and spending a couple days here. Diane took a couple days off work, so we're just kind of chilling this morning. A little slow on the draw of getting signed in this morning. I apologize for that, but glad you could join me for our few minutes together. It's a beautiful morning this morning. Not quite very hot yet, and nice little breeze out here on my patio. So glad you could be with me for our few minutes together as we share in our daily word. So our scripture for this morning comes from the book of Galatians, chapter 5, verse 13. Now there's a bigger, of course, this is one verse, and of course there are bigger pieces of this, and we'll talk about that a little bit this morning as we go along. But we hear these words: "You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh. Rather, serve one another." Freedom to do whatever we want, freedom to not to make choices, of course. And lots of choices about how we're going to live. Situations we're going to find ourselves in. We are free to make all of those choices. But when we decide to live as Christian, and there's even this conversation now about religion, if you will, and having the freedom to choose something because of a religious exemption. And so there is this idea that when we are made new creations in the power of Jesus, when we really are experiencing freedom, when we really are Christian, when we really are religious, then it gives us this new expanded capacity then to choose. And the scripture says to us that we're no longer slaves to our flesh, but we choose godly choice. The scripture says to us that our choice is binary. We can either choose to indulge in the flesh, so be selfish, do whatever we want, not love our neighbor. We can choose to do that, or we can choose to humbly love others. The scripture says to us, we can walk in the Spirit, or we can walk in the flesh. But the scripture's clear, at least to me, us, of course, that there are consequences to our decisions. We reap what we sow. If we indulge in the flesh, and then we reap those kinds of decisions. When we sow in the Spirit and we serve one another in love, the entire law of God, the scripture says to us, if you read all of this text, is fulfilled. And that means for us then harmony, togetherness, teamwork, and unity. Jesus, in our relationship with Him and this idea of what it means to be Christian, and even if we claim to be religious now and want to have a religious exemption from mask wearing and vaccines, if you will, we're not free from that choice, you see. And we're free to make all kinds of decisions But the scripture says to us, we either make a decision to indulge in the flesh, to not live in relationship with each other, to then find ourselves, as the scripture says to us, find ourselves biting and devouring, find ourselves in turmoil and division and bitterness and separation in love. And we're not really given a choice in the matter. We really are called to one or the other. And I know that's hard for us. You know, we love our freedom, if you will. We love freedom to choose. We love the freedom to do what it is that we want to do with our lives. And I certainly get that. You know, I understand what all of that means. But here's the catch for us that I think is important in how we're called to live our lives. We're called to be free. The scripture's clear about that. But in this world where we are so now connected and interconnected and connected in ways beyond what we even realize and know, and how many connections we make with each other. When I was in therapy last Friday, my therapist and I were talking about basketball and coaching and announcing and all of that stuff, and so we got to talking about a coach, and she said his name, and I said, yeah, I know him well, and I married he and his wife, and we had this big conversation, and she finally said to me, Jim, you really do know lots of people, don't you? And I said, I've been trying to tell you, our interconnectedness, you see, isn't just to the people we're closest to. Our interconnectedness is like this big weave of people, and we're all connected in these powerful ways. And so we choose when we live our lives, if we want to live interconnectedly, if we just want to stay home, you know, and not connect with anyone, and I don't know people who really want to do that. If we choose to live in the web of connectedness, which I believe that we do, we can indulge in the flesh, only care about ourselves, not care about anybody else around us, or we can serve one another humbly in love. And Paul says there are no other options. And so what would that look like for us to serve one another humbly in love? I think it does mean that we realize how connected we are. That we don't just get to live in our own opinion and in our own stratosphere. If we really claim to be Christian and claim religion or religious freedom, then we have to realize that we're connected to each other and that our lives are connected. We got to the campground here on Sunday, and we were setting stuff up, and Dustin and the boys came, and Kelsey and Weston came, and sure enough, it wasn't long we had been here and got us set up, and folks we haven't seen because we haven't been here because of me and my lack of mobility. First golf cart pulls up. It's a very good friend. She sat and talked for a long time. It was good to reconnect. She gave us all a hug. She left a little bit later. Another golf cart pulled up. Two people got out, stood and talked, told us how much they missed us, shared in great conversation. A little bit later, the kids were getting ready to leave, and I was sitting on the steps right over there, and a third golf cart pulls up, and it's two gentlemen, one who we used to camp by up front, and he just came back to say hi and say how much he missed us, and he said laughingly that he comes back here every once in a while to the back of the campground and holds a light up for me. And they drove away, and I said to Diane, it was so nice of them to come back here and to check in with us, because you see, really, in reality, even though I haven't seen them for weeks and weeks and weeks. We're connected. The first friend who came to visit, we share text messages back and forth, and she said, Jim, everybody comes to me to ask me how you are. Everybody in this campground comes to me and asks me how you are. You see, our lives, even though we haven't seen each other for weeks upon weeks, we are connected. That's how life is. That's what Paul calls us to. You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge in the flesh. Rather, serve one another humbly in love. That's what we're called to. That's the big picture of God's kingdom that's lived out in our lives because you and I are connected. And it's the bigger picture that's lived out because I'm connected to these folks in this campground who care enough to get on their golf carts and come back here and connect with us yet again. You see, that's what Paul calls us to serve one another humbly in love. Gosh, that's just, I have a dream for that might happen in our lives, that kind of connectedness with each other just might, I don't know, somehow take hold and make a difference in our lives and in all of those who are around us. To serve one another humbly in love. So, that's our word for today. I hope it's a good word for you as it is for me. Hope you hear it and we can apply it to our lives as we live interconnectedly with each other. So, as I always say, I hope you know of God's love that's deep and rich and that surrounds you in all your lives. Hope you know of my love for all of you. And I will see you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Have a great day.